Hey everybody, Adam Savage at FBFX in London with Joe. How are you, sir?
How are you?
So good to see you.
Again.
Again, yeah, we came in here to film some other stuff and I walked in and I saw this up on the shelf and I was like, what? This happens to be one of my favorite pieces of armor in any museum. Tell me what this is.
Well, this is it was really an exercise because with the strikes which have recently just happened, we had a little bit of dead time in the workshop, and we also had recently in the past year or so completed on Napoleon. So
Ridley Scott's film, and you guys made a ton of armor.
Yes, and we had a lot of what we refer to as broken biscuits, which is failed molds, things that have been pulled and not been pulled correctly, lying around the workshop. And we were in the middle of doing a big clear up, as you know, you always end up doing at the end of every single production. And we had these breastplates, and same as you, I had seen this going around. It sort of kind of exploded on the internet a little while ago. And I kind of thought it'd be really interesting for us to just create something which is trying to copy
a museum
really
display.
Interesting museum piece.
So this is a piece of armor, and the person in this had this happen to them in 1809. Is that correct?
So it was during the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes,
and there's a lot of people aren't sure if this is actually a genuine real piece. It dates from the time. Oh, but people
it might have
aren't
been PR.
Yeah, people aren't really sure if it's actually a genuine thing. So there's a lot of question marks over it because there was some things which people say like his pocketbook was found with the jacket that came with the breastplate at the same time. So it seems a little bit convenient that we know who the person was wearing this.
But the idea is that a 4-inch cannonball went through a French cuirassier.
Yeah.
And their family name was Favreau.
Yes.
And we don't know whether it was the Favreau whose armor it was, or his brother it might have been, yes?
Yes, so supposedly the Favreau, which is meant to have been wearing this, was meant to be being married around the same time. And also people think that he did get married after this is meant to have happened. But one of the theories is that it was his brother.
Could it be that Jon Favreau, the director, is like the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandnephew of...
I think there might be more Favreaus, but it could be, you never know. It's probably not this guy.
Look, the first time I saw a picture of this, which is a long time ago, because I've been obsessed with armor forever, it's so evocative as to how awful warfare must have been for your average flesh and blood person back then.
Well, as anyone who's watched Napoleon, Ridley Scott is very good at illustrating what happens in war. And obviously having a chunk of metal this big fly into you is obviously going to do quite a lot of damage. There was, when they first released these images of this breastplate, the soldiers actually listed as wounded.
'Tis but a scratch.
Yes, very Monty Python. And the #1 comment underneath it, which I love, which is, "I hope he's okay," from doing this.
Okay, so you guys have made literally thousands upon thousands of suits of armor. Who built this? How did this get built here in the shop?
So one of our very skilled makers, Lawrence, made this for us. So as I said, we used actually multiple breastplates because this is of a completely different design than we created for Napoleon. So we had to do a layering effect, and we also had to add a few extra bits and pieces. We tried to keep it as true to the original piece as we could, but obviously we weren't making a true copy. So therefore, expediency and just making it as quickly as we could. And then we were using a lot of techniques with kind of just ruining a piece of armor is probably the best way to put it. So bending it, stretching it, heating it, and trying to get it to sit into the positions that we needed it to. Because obviously this is from a mold of a perfectly
Right, and this is done in your normal process that I learned last time I was here, spray polyurea.
Yes, this is the spray polyurea system.
I have to imagine that you commissioned this with some excitement, like, let's do this.
Yes.
You still must have been spectacularly impressed with the final result.
Yeah, it's always, like, obviously we have incredibly skilled makers here. And just the stand work that we did for the display stand for this. One of our other colleagues, Katie, she used to work at the Mary Rose, which many people in the UK probably have heard of, where she was doing display stands for all of their archaeological finds there. And we sort of combined all of these things, and you always get surprised. Well, not surprised is the wrong word, because we know that our makers are very, very skilled human beings. But it's always beautiful when a plan comes together, as it were.
Absolutely. The mount is fantastic. It looks completely authentic to a real museum mount for a piece of armor, meant to hold it, but carefully.
Yes.
Right? So it's really cradling on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. It's really delicate.
Well, it's nice because we have a lot of our suits that we've made over the years, and we have our museum, as it were, in various other different parts of the building. And it's nice to have a completely unusable curio, as it were. And as you say, it kind of sits, and a lot of people just see it in the corner and go, what's that? And it's always lovely to sort of create those things.
Dude, I literally walked in and I kind of shrieked, because I just never thought I'd see. Look, I make replicas of absurd and ludicrous things. So this is right up the middle for me.
Well, we're usually being asked by other people to make absurd and ludicrous things.
Right.
So it's nice to make an absurd and ludicrous thing purely for ourselves.
Joe, my hat is off to your team and everybody. It is so incredible. And all this metallic is all just paint treatment.
It's all paint treatment. So obviously we've done a lot of historical parts through the years. And we've been running now for 30 plus years. So there's a lot of inherent knowledge in how to do those. Obviously, new technologies are coming in constantly.
All the time.
But the replication of those, it's nice to apply them to something which is like an actual historical piece, as it were, rather than a filmic piece.
So, Joe, talk to me about the spectacular weathering on this, the pitting. Was that already in the piece you were casting?
So that's something we actually added into this, because, as I said, this was originally a breastplate which was meant to be very, very smooth and polished.
Right.
So we added just a little bit of extra sort of texture and patina to it using some techniques that we've developed over the years. And the other bonus that you get with these little extra bits, as you've done with a lot of your weathering and finishing, the more you have for paint to go into, it increases it and makes it look a little bit more lifelike. And Anadora, who's our head painter here, is really, really good at just getting that. You just want a little bit extra just to make it look more real, as it were.
Place for the dirt to go.
Yes, exactly.
And now I'm also curious about this is a tear of a cannonball through iron and brass. Talk to me about the sculpting process of getting the entry and exit wound right. You actually cut into the Darth Vader helmet for the Obi-Wan series, right? We talked about that.
Yes. This is a slightly different form of urethane or polyurea. Saying urethane's a little bit like saying plastic, because there's loads and loads of different types of urethanes.
Mean many different things.
Yeah. And whereas with the Vader helmet, that was actually more of a cast urethane. So you end up having to do a lot more sculpting with those sort of ones. Right. Where if this is a sprayed urethane, and it's quite susceptible to heat bending, and you can stretch it. Partly when it's first cast, it's a lot more, you can move it around a lot more, but also just using pure heat from using a heat gun hairdryer, you can also warp and move it.
And it gives you, that heat bending gives you a what do you call it? A compromised compound curve that would have happened with metal.
Yes.
That's the really cool thing.
Because it's still a plastic material in the sense that not as in the material, but as in the plastic, as in the movement.
Right, right.
So you're always going to be able to bend it, and it's going to want to move in those naturalistic curves and things like that, rather than angles.
Because I think you'd have a really hard time sculpting that and getting it to look right, especially with the reflection parameters.
Well, you also, when you're doing these sort of things, when you're working with like a live material, as it were, you get those nice little happy accidents, which, as you say, very, very, very high-end sculptors can do, but it takes a lot of knowledge to do those. And when you're doing it with these sort of materials, you can kind of get that. You bend it and you're like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
You know.
I notice here that you've got some fascia pieces coming on here, the underlayer of iron peeking through the brass.
Yes.
I just love how that comes out.
Because we wanted that laminated feel to it, so that because with these double layering that you have with these breastplates, so it would have been a steel and brass, as you say, and it's just trying to get it so that you have that fractured, and also it gives it a little bit of a kinetic feel as well. Yeah. At the same time, you want it to look like an actual cannonball's flown through it.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second, because there's reference material, and then there's the goal. And the reference material gets you a good portion of the way, but at a certain point, I imagine you had to abandon the reference and like, we're just going to sculpt this until it feels like a cannonball has been here and left.
Well, it's one of the things that you are as you know with your background as well, you're always correct doesn't necessarily look correct.
Yeah.
And what people think would be correct is sometimes what you're going for rather than what is actually going to be, you know, physically or scientifically correct.
Right, you fulfill the expectation.
Yes, very much so.
Amazing. Truly, man. It is so beautiful. Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for watching that video. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you we have some excellent merch. We have a 5-pack of demerit badges for sale right now at tested/store.com. We've got the I hung it off of level demerit badge, the I built the chair backwards demerit badge, the I hit my thumb with a hammer demerit badge. We've got the stapler in my finger demerit badge, and my favorite, I stuck the duct tape to itself demerit badge. Get yours now, tested/store.store, tested-store. Tested. It's right here. There. Just click there.